All right, we got former All-Pro running back Ryan Westbrook here to break this one down. Ryan, good morning. What's going on here? You believe Aaron Rodgers' mind is already made up?
Good morning, Jenna. And you know what? I absolutely believe that Aaron Rodgers' mind is made up because as an athlete, when you lose confidence in your organization and you lose trust that your GM is going to put the best talent around you, it's just hard to walk back in that door and say, you know what, now I have trust in you. Let's work together to go try to win a Super Bowl. And we actually had two examples this past year. Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, he said, you know what, I'm not happy with Howie Roseman because he drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round in 2020. And really, when you think about it, Tom Brady in New England, he wasn't happy with the Patriots because they didn't put enough talent around him. He ends up down there in Tampa Bay with a stacked roster and wins a Super Bowl. And when I think about this, Joy, I have to believe that Aaron Rodgers said, you know what, I'm the face of the franchise, and you guys didn't bother to give me a phone call or a text when you drafted Jordan Love. And because of that, and because you didn't put a bunch of talent around me in this offseason in the draft and a little bit in free agency, now I have no confidence in the GM. I have no confidence in anyone over at the Packers facility. And because of that, I'm out the door.
Oh, no, I agree. I think as far as everything that the Packers did, I don't think that he's completely made his mind up because I think he has given them some sort of ultimatum or some list of demands in order to get him back, and the Packers haven't quite budged on them yet. Also, you know, there is that little factor of around $30 million he'd be leaving on the table if he really played hardball this year, and they still have his rights for the next 3 years. So it's not as simple as him saying, you know, I'm going to retire. I don't think he wants to do that. But I'm with you on how the Packers handled it. This is one of my favorite stories because it's, I mean, even just listening to LaFleur, I mean, his voice cracks a little bit. We want him back in the worst way. I mean, This was avoidable. All of this was avoidable. It was very clear how to handle this. You have Aaron Rodgers in his prime. You don't need to move up into the first round and take another quarterback after you just went to the NFC Championship game, went 13-3. I mean, my goodness. Give the guy a text message. It's not that hard. Send him a DM. I'm sure you have some other ways to communicate with him if you can't be bothered to give him a phone call. I have no sympathy for the Packers in this situation. If it completely blows up and they're terrible for the next 20 years, they deserve every bit of it. And I'm sorry for Packers fans, but this was a communication issue, and I just don't have sympathy for organizations who can't communicate. This was wrong. It's not how you treat a superstar, and I'm sorry that you're old school and you think that everyone should just fall in line, but everyone on earth can actually really relate to what Aaron Rodgers is going through. Everyone has had a job where they felt unappreciated or undervalued, and they go to work every day and do a great job, and then their bosses lie to them or something. Like, it happens all the time. It's just that when it's a professional athlete, people tend to think that just because you're paid a lot of money that you should just fall in line, when in fact you're one of like 6 people on planet Earth that can do what you do. So if anything, you should definitely not fall in line. You should demand everything that you want, get everything that you want out of the situation. I have no sympathy for the Packers at all.
And Joy, the only part I'll disagree with you on is I don't know that everyone has been treated like this at their job, because I think typically people in any industry who are as good at what they do as Aaron Rodgers is at what his, don't get disrespected by their bosses. The opposite happens. They actually get extra leeway. There are rules for everyone else, and then rules for our best people, and then rules for our very best person. And so I do think there are a lot of people who feel underappreciated, underpaid, overworked, but usually it's not the person that just won Salesman of the Year in the nation. Like, that guy usually can skip the sales meeting and play 9 holes and nobody says anything because he's so great. What they don't do is go around his back and try to hire his replacement. Now, Joy said something interesting about the way Matt LaFleur sounded. And Matt LaFleur is the one, other than Packer fans, I feel the worst for here. Because Matt LaFleur didn't want this. Matt LaFleur is not trying to develop Jordan Love. Matt LaFleur was like, man, oh man, I got hired in the same hiring cycle as Zach Taylor. How's Zach Taylor's NFL life been? Not great. First year as a head coach, worst record in the NFL. Second year as a head coach, his quarterback who they got with the first pick because they had the worst record gets his knee blown out. Now he's on the hot seat already in year 3. He's like, I walked into Aaron Rodgers. Now I have to live in Green Bay, so that's a bit of a bummer, but I got Aaron Rodgers. And now my boss might be screwing up my relationship with Rodgers. So I do feel for Matt LaFleur. To answer the question, I don't think Rodgers' mind is 100% made up. You've made this point, and I'm sure you will here. If it were 100% made up, he'd say it. I think he's left the door slightly ajar because he hasn't put a voice to this, but I don't think the Packers have fixed things yet. I don't think they have solved the wound or the wounds of the last few years, most notably, as Joy was talking about Wilds, the Jordan Love pick and not giving him a heads up.
Yeah, I think the door is more than slightly ajar. I think it's wide open. It's as wide as it needs to be to bring in a hand truck with a bunch of money on it. And once that bunch of money comes through the door, Aaron Rodgers will be like, you know what? I feel okay about it. Because, Brian, I don't think he feels that mad about Jordan Love. Because Jordan Love was drafted, if I check my calendar, hold on a second, last year. Now, if you and I, and certainly we would never get into a disagreement because we're both wonderful people, but if for some reason you were upset at me, and you were like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do first things first anymore. You guys are disrespecting me. And I finally just flew down to your palatial horse farm, and I was like, Brian, what's the deal? Why all of a sudden are you upset at me? And you said, Wilds, it's from what you did last year. I'm like, huh? We went a whole year, and you were great on the show. You're mad about what I did last year to the point that you want to leave the team? For me, it feels more leverage than it does legit beef that will cause him to leave Green Bay. And I don't want to fight.
Well, Kevin, let me ask you this. Well, I don't want to fight with you either. I've seen you've been muscled up over these last couple of months here, so I'm worried about that. But for me, I think for Aaron Rodgers, it hasn't been just the Jordan Love pick. I think over the last few years, he's been like, well, where's this big signing? Where's this big free agent that we've signed to help the offense? Devontae Adams is one of the best in the game, if not one of the best receiver in the league. Where's the other piece? Where's the other pieces that are going to help me? Where are the other pieces, even on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to help us be better there? To me, I think Aaron Rodgers is fed up with the idea that we're not picking the right people to put in place so that we can win. Again, you look at Tom Brady, you say, well, he goes to a stacked roster and wins immediately. Aaron Rodgers has to believe that, and of course, he's the MVP, that he's better than Tom Brady at this point in his career. If he had similar talent, he would be winning MVPs
right.
and Super Bowls all the time. And unfortunately, they haven't put that type of talent around him.
And I'm going to say one other thing. While Wilds maybe can't foresee a scenario where one would hold a grudge against a coworker for months and months or years and years, I'm not trying to speak for Joy Taylor, but I will. Joy and I both come from a different world, and that world is sports talk radio. And I guarantee you to this day, there are a couple old program directors that Joy would love to see fired. I guarantee you there are people that once Joy was on TV every day, she had to do everything in her not to send a few snarky tweets, DMs, or even text to people like, hey, remember that person wouldn't put me on the air? Well, look at me now. Maybe they shouldn't be running things. And maybe I'm projecting, but I've done that. So, I absolutely have been in a job where I'm like, that boss is an idiot. I'm going to prove him wrong. And once I prove him wrong, I'm going to go to his boss and say, I don't want to work for him anymore. 100%. So I think that's what Rodgers' MVP year was. It's like, okay, you think I stink. I'm going to show you I don't. And then I'm going to see if I can force you out. Now, he might not win, but I do think that's a thing people do. Maybe not Wilds, just less balanced people and well-adjusted like me.
Yeah, Nick and I are a little darker than Wilds.
Yeah, you are.
Exactly
Wilds
right.
and I come from the land of TV, where we over-communicate and over-apologize left and right because we want to feel good segment to segment. That's what we do.
Not
All right,
interested.
we got to move on. Yeah, very interested. Time for Nick to hand out more of his NBA awards. We're talking